I'm trying something out a little bit new today. I'm trying to stream from Restream, trying to get this out into a couple different places at the same time. Really glad to be with you this morning. We are here for a daily devotional thought, daily devotional truth. Actually, it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 8 a.m. We're walking our way through the Bible, one chapter at a time, seeking to learn what God has to say to us in His Word about our lives as His followers, seeking to let God's Word, who God is and how God walks with His people, seeking to let that shape, seeking to let that shape who we are and what we believe and how we move through our lives. We are in Exodus, or not in Exodus. The Exodus starts pretty soon, but not quite yet. We are in Genesis chapter 46 and chapter 47. And if you're catching up to this part of the story, I want you to kind of get and understand what's happening here in Genesis. We are Joseph just in chapter 45. Joseph just made himself known to his brothers. He just told them who he was. He sent them home. And I didn't talk about this in the last video, but I think it's really interesting and powerful to think about. What was it like? What was it like for Jacob to find out that his son, who he thought was dead for 13 years, was alive again? What do you think that was like for Jacob? And what was it like then for Jacob to know, okay, now you just found out your son who you thought was dead is alive, and now I want you to relocate to Egypt. What do you think that was all like for Jacob? I can only imagine that your heart is going in a million different places. If you look back at chapter 45, we're told Joseph was stunned. He plays a little bit of Thomas. He did not believe them, and then he was finally convinced. So you just imagine what that was like. So chapter 46 and chapter 47, I want you to notice something about God. I want you to know something about God, and then I want you to notice something about Jacob. One, notice that God does not want his people to be unsure about his presence and about his promise. See, what God does for Jacob, and it's a really powerful move that God makes. God comes to Joseph in the midst of his heart kind of like going in all kinds of different places, in the midst of his heart kind of maybe even falling to pieces. God comes to Jacob, and this is what happens. God came to Jacob in a vision at night and says, Jacob, Jacob, and Jacob says, here I am. God says, I am the God of your father. He said, do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you into a great nation there. I will go down to Egypt with you, and I will surely bring you back again. And Joseph's own hand will close your eyes. This is now at least the third big moment in Jacob's life when God shows up to assure him of his promise. Remember the first time, it was at Bethel. It was at Bethel when Jacob was running away from home because he had deceived his brother, he had deceived his dad, he had taken what was not his, or he had gotten it in the wrong way, and God came to him in Bethel with the vision of the staircase going up to heaven and coming down. God assured him there, I am your God, I will be with you, and I will bring you back again. That's the first time. Second time, Jacob is on his way back after spending a long time with Laban, after getting his wife and his kids and his cattle and all those things. He's coming back, and Esau's coming out to meet him, and Jacob is terrified. You can understand why. And again, here comes God. Right, here comes God, the camp of angels comes, and here comes God to wrestle with Jacob, to assure him. That's when Jacob gets his new name Israel, because he wrestled with God and he overcame. Right, I want you to understand what God is doing. Right, God doesn't want to leave his people wondering about his presence. He doesn't want to leave his people wondering about his promises. And so here comes God again in chapter 46. Jacob's about to leave the promised land and go to Egypt, and God's saying, Jacob, don't be afraid. I'm going to be with you, and I'm going to bring you back. See, I want you to notice this theme in Jacob's life, and maybe start to notice the theme in your own life too, that God does not want to leave you wondering about his presence. God does not want to leave you wondering about his goodness. See, God comes to you, right? He comes to you through his word. Every time you open up his word, every time you study his word, every time you hear his word, every time you're in his word, God's present with you, right? And it's not just in the word, as if that were not enough. God not only comes to you in his word, but God also comes to you in baptism. God came to your baptism and he said, I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine. And that baptismal certificate that you have packed away somewhere, or maybe have posted on your wall somewhere, that certificate is a declaration from God, a promise from God, that in your baptism, God vowed never to leave you or forsake you. And as if that were not enough, God also comes to you in the Lord's Supper, in Holy Communion, and God comes to you there through bread and wine with his body and blood to say, I'm with you, I forgive you, and I'll never leave you or forsake you. See, God, you see this theme in Jacob's life, you can see this theme in your own life, that God does not want to leave you wondering about his presence or about his promises. God will do what he said he will do. That's the first thing. I want you to learn that about Jacob, that God will do what he said he's going to do. He will. He wants you to be sure. He wants to remove fear and doubt. So he comes through word and sacrament. He comes. He's relentlessly coming. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I want you to see Jacob's response. See, as Jacob moves to Egypt, when Jacob relocates his whole family, now I'm at the end of chapter 47. Jacob settles down in Egypt, and this is how Jacob ends his life, really. Israel worshiped. See, worship is in many ways, and maybe in every way, a response to God. See, what happens in your heart when you realize that God is relentless for you, that he's going to keep on coming for you, when he's going to keep on speaking to you, when he's going to keep on bringing God's word to you. What happens in your heart when you realize that we have a relentless God who wants us to be sure, who wants to remove fear, who wants to remove doubt, who wants to fold us in his hands to calm our shaking, trembling hearts? What happens in your heart when you realize you have a good God who wants to do good things for you, who's going to relentlessly keep coming to you to assure you of his love and forgiveness and his mercy? What happens in your heart? It's worship, right? You just say, wow, I have a good God. Wow, I have a merciful God. Wow. That's Jacob's response. Jacob gets to the end of his life after all his ups and downs, and he says, wow, I have a good God. He falls down on his face in a very real way. He falls down on his face before God because he knows that he is a good God. See, those are the two things. I want you to know this about God. God is relentless to take away your fear and doubt, and God is relentless to keep assuring you of his presence and his promise. And secondly, our response then is just to say, worship. It's to say, wow, God. So dig into God's word and meditate on this, and start to see in Jacob's story, start to see the shape of your own life, because Jacob's story is not so different from our own. Jacob's story, the stories of God's people, they're not so different from our own, with all their ups and downs. We have a God who's present with us. We have a God who assures us of his presence. We have a God whom we can worship. I want to invite you back tonight. We're starting on Wednesday. We're starting Prayer for 40. You can sign up to get daily emails starting on Wednesday evening to help you participate in Prayer for 40 once a week. And I'm doing it tonight because I didn't want to do it on Valentine's Day, but once a week. I'm going to teach about it on Sunday mornings in person, and then I'm going to teach about it online. The same lesson. Mostly it's going to be Sunday evenings, but this week it's going to be Monday evening at 8:30 p.m. And we're going to stream it on Facebook and on YouTube, and it's going to be a presentation style. Although I will invite you, if you're listening in or studying in, to chat into the conversation, because my prayer is that not only I could share and teach and encourage you in your prayer life through video, but I also want people who can't tune in to a specific time to be able to access that too. So that's why the Sunday morning is going to be in person, but the Sunday evening, or tonight, it's going to be Monday evening, is going to be just streamed a video, a lot like this. Although I will share some Bible verses, and I'll share my screen, and we'll dig a little bit deeper. It's going to be it'll be about a 30-minute study. just digging into prayer. So I want to invite you to join me in that. I want to invite you to join me in praying. If you have any questions about it, please comment, please share this. And I'm really glad to be with you in God's word, because I pray that God would shape our hearts and our lives and shape our daily practices, our daily rituals, our daily habits, so that they're like him, that God would transform us into the likeness of his son, from glory into glory. So have a great day, everybody. I'll also maybe see some of you later on tonight at 8:30 p.m. as we dive into prayer. The Lord be with you all today and grant you his peace.